Welcome back to the Arise interview. To the United States now, where Democrats have claimed victory in one hotly contested U.S. Senate race in Georgia, while pulling ahead in the second. They are edging closer to controlling the chamber and the power to advance Democratic President-elect Joe Biden's policy goals when he takes office this month. Democrat Raphael Warnock will become the first black senator in his state's history.
So I come before you tonight as a man who knows that the improbable journey that led me to this place in this historic moment in America could only happen here. We were told that we couldn't win this election, but tonight we prove that with hope, hard work, and the people by our side, anything is possible. And so, Georgia, I am honored by the faith that you have shown in me. And I promise you this tonight. I am going to the Senate to work for all of Georgia. No matter who you cast your vote for in this election, in this moment in American history, Washington has a choice to make. In fact, all of us have a choice to make. Will we continue to divide, distract, and dishonor one another? Or will we love our neighbors as we love ourselves?
And Arise special correspondent Karl Bostic joins me now in the studio for an in-depth analysis. Good to have you, Karl. I mean, it's a lovely day for Warnock, this clergy who has now been elected as senator.
For Black America,
yeah,
too.
I mean, yeah, it's a historic period for the people of Georgia and Black America. What does this actually mean for the American people and Biden's presidency?
Well, just taking it from the election itself narrowly, because there's so much history involved right now. Very simply put, what we saw in play was maybe two or three things. We saw black turnout like never before. In other words, let's just look again at where we are with the margins of victory. We can look at the four candidates, for example. We have here David Perdue, Jon Ossoff, Kelly Loeffler, and Warnock. Warnock is the winner. What propelled Warnock's victory, very simply, was black turnout. You had untold numbers of blacks voting more than back in November, for example. That's really the key. And Donald Trump, despite his visit on Monday night, he didn't turn out the vote. So there are big questions about what his relevance is. But in terms of history and Raphael Warnock, he's only the first black to be elected senator from Georgia, deep South state, and also he's the first black from the South, second one since the Civil War. I mean, it's just amazing stuff. And a lot of the reasons had to just do with just racism, quite frankly, because the sense was that no black could run from the deep South and expect to be elected to the United States Senate. No black could expect support from the National Party. No black could expect to get support from the state. In other words, the saying in the South was that you can get close, Sumner, but not too high. Well, he reached that height. And let's just take a quick look at the next set of numbers that we have here. We have another set of numbers we can show you with some more information about just how important was the black vote. Well, this is the turnout right here. We see that Raphael Warnock, he is up by about 1.5 points, whereas Jon Ossoff, he leads David Perdue by only 16,000 votes. But the thing about it is this, Sumner, there are thousands of votes still to come, but those thousands of votes will come from strongly Democrat areas.
Yeah, like for that of Ossoff and Perdue, do you foresee a recount or challenges with the remaining votes coming in?
Well, Georgia law is such that if you are half a percentage point ahead, that's an automatic recount. And right now, they're so close. I mean, Ossoff is like maybe 2 or 3/10 of a percentage point ahead of Perdue. But he's expected to win. In fact, he's already declared victory. Meanwhile, you've got Warnock saying that he expects to be sworn in the next few days. But I wanted to take a quick look at just how important and significant that black vote was. As you can see from this slide right here, nearly 31% of the voters, Sumner, who cast their votes for this Senate runoff, 31% were black. That's more than the one of blacks who turned out to vote in November for Joe Biden, 28%. But this is what really grips me, Sumner. Nearly 50,000 black Georgians cast early ballots in the Senate runoffs after not voting. They hadn't even voted before, Sumner. So if you look at the margins for Ossoff and for Warnock, that alone by itself just shows how significant was a
huge proportion of new voters.
Well, it's a force. I mean, the blacks delivered Georgia for Biden, and they're delivering Georgia for the Democrats.
Yeah, and let's take a look at Stacey Abrams' role in this. A lot of persons have said she's been able to mobilize about 800,000 new voters.
Yes.
And a lot of people actually crowning her as the heroine in all of this story.
She's the secret weapon, and that's another story by itself. Stacey Abrams is a black politician. She failed in her candidacy for governor of Georgia back in 2016 or so by just 55,000 votes. The person she was running against happened to be the state official in charge of elections. And she said, listen, if you're the guy in charge of elections, how can you also be running for governor? Shouldn't you at least just step down so we can have a level playing field? But he refused to do so. So as it turned out, Sumner, tens of thousands of votes were disqualified, black votes. Okay. So that's what started her campaign there.
Now, let's take a look at this comment, which is very interesting to me personally, by Warnock. He's actually saying that the other day, because this is America, the 82-year-old Hans that used to pick somebody else's cotton went to the polls and picked her youngest son to be a United States Senator. This has to do with race relations in Georgia, being a very critical state in the South, the Deep South, and what does his winning actually mean to a lot of blacks like him?
Well, what it shows, Sumner, is that you've got the Old South passing the baton to the New South. The Old South is people like his mother picking cotton. Listen, I'm from Washington, D.C. My father's family is also from Georgia. My father grew up picking cotton until he was age 9 because it was more important to pick cotton than to go to school. And in fact, when I was growing up, I was never once told or encouraged to even go to Georgia because of the deep discrimination, because you were supposed to know your place as a black person. I mean, my father's generation grew up watching lynchings. Georgia was still one of the leading states for lynchings up until the 1930s, if you can believe that. But the New South is different. The New South is a younger, diverse crowd, college-educated whites. The state that's sending the most people moving to Atlanta right now of all states is New York City. So it's a younger, diverse crowd. So what Warnock had to do, he had to cobble together a coalition, not only of just young, college-educated whites, but he also, he went to his strength. He's a pastor, he's a reverend, and they went to the rural belt, they went to the Bible belt, they went to the churches, and they did, amongst other things, they got out, the people from the churches, they got the blacks out to vote, and they got young black males, young black people to vote. That's why you saw those 50,000 black people voting. But before we went out, I just want to make sure you understand what's at stake now, how this does affect Joe Biden. If I can kind of shift gears for a moment.
Just go ahead, because a lot of attention is right now on the Biden presidency.
Because
and what this would mean.
Because when people went to the polls yesterday, or what's today now, Wednesday.
Yeah, today's Wednesday.
Yeah, I'm just so lost in all this. That today's the vote at the Senate. 95% of the voters in both runoff races said that determining control of the Senate was a major factor about why they were voting, with 3 and 5, in other words, 60% saying that was the single most important factor. It was more important for them to know whether the Democrats control the Senate or the Republicans control the Senate. That's why they were voting.
Yeah, and a lot of people want to say, what will this mean for the Biden presidency eventually?
Let's just take a look at the numbers. It's incredible what we're going to see right now coming up. I think we've got some numbers to show you about just what the face of the Senate will look like. So now, with Warnock's election, it's 49 Democrats, 50 Republicans. It's a real cliffhanger, Sumner. If John Ossoff wins, which is as expected, and he's declaring victory already, it'll be a 50-50 proposition.
I mean, and very historic too.
Well, let's look at what happens next if it's 50-50, because guess what happens then? If it's 50-50 according to Senate rules, 50 Democrats, 50 Republicans, it's the party in the White House, in this case the Democrat Party led by Joe Biden. It's the vice president who's the president of the Senate. And guess who the vice president is? Kamala Harris. Kamala Harris will cast a deciding vote for any major piece of legislation, or when it comes to Joe Biden wanting to nominate A, B, C, D, E, F for his cabinet, or if he wants to choose a judge, or if he wants to choose a Supreme Court justice, it's green
Just
light.
like Trump is counting on Pence right now.
It's game over.
I mean, yeah, I would want you to actually speak on that very quickly before we go. Trump actually is putting out this statement that he's counting on Trump to help him with that ballot that he has in the Senate. What does that mean, actually?
Well, not really much, because already it's been reported, Sumner, that Pence has met with Trump and saying that he doesn't have the authority to do so. I mean, his job is ceremonial. Trump is actually looking for a way for Pence to expand his powers. What's happening later today, Pence basically does a roll call alphabetically of all 50 states, basically, reading out loud each state and what the results was of each state that certified Joe Biden as winner with the electoral states. And Donald Trump is saying, well, you don't have to recognize these states. You don't have to recognize these electors if in dispute. And
so what kind of help is Trump seeking from Pence?
Pence basically said, that's not my job. But what can happen is there can be a challenge mounted from if there's a congressman in conjunction with a senator who says, I don't like what happened in Arizona. I don't like what happened in Georgia. I don't like what happened in Pennsylvania. And so what's going to happen is that they're going to force that by saying, I object to this state submitting these electors because their results were maybe questionable. Because they're senators and because they're congressmen, each house has to adjourn and debate for up to 2 hours, taking up time. And the thing about it is this, Sumner, in order for any challenge to be successful, to overturn the vote, a majority has to pass in both houses. Well, the House is dominated controlled by the Democrats, and the majority of Republicans are even against this. So it's a doomed effort. And it's really more of a stunt than anything else.
Well, all right, special correspondent Karl Bostic, it's really nice actually having you discuss these issues. Always at home with you whenever you're talking about these issues. Thanks so much for being on the Arise interview. Well, that's it for this edition of the Arise interview. Do join us again tomorrow from me and the entire team here in Abuja. Goodbye and thank you for watching.